Ben Johnson throws a major curveball at his players on day 2 of minicamp, and it's one that I definitely respect. We're also talking about Adam Schefter's recent comments on Caleb Williams and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Sarah Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. So this is an interesting one. This one comes from Scott Bear of Marquee Sports, in which he talks about how Ben Johnson is keeping his players on their toes already in training camp. And if you're somebody like me who loves a coach that really wants to get the most out of their team in creative ways, then this is really going to stand out for you. It reminded me last year for my Bears fans that are also Bulls fans, is that when Billy Donovan last year in training camp moved the team to a 20-second shot clock instead of a 24-second shot clock to just get the team used to the pace that he wants them to play in. And I felt like that was really intentional. Ben Johnson threw his team a curveball here with the Bears as well, saying this one. Johnson conducted a more competitive practice on Wednesday than was designed to test what players have learned to this point. They ran situational drills for all types, generally in 11-on-11 situations. The biggest part of it, those sessions were unscripted. Saying this, everything that had been instilled over the last few weeks was up. And we'll see the tape to see who handled it and who didn't, Ben Johnson said. Some guys did better than others. You could tell out there, but it was good to see. It felt more like football, even though we didn't have pads on. Listen, I'm not saying that this is something that other coaches have not done. I don't even know. For all I know, every coach could do a little bit of this at some point in practice, in training camp and mini camps. But listen, the fact that Ben Johnson came out here and ran, one, a more competitive practice than they were already expecting. Two, nothing was scripted. So they didn't script anything. That is huge. That really does do a good job at testing, all right, who's really grasping this playbook. And this is early in training camp to be doing that because I think everybody's still kind of learning and adapting to the playbook on both sides of the ball. We've heard offensive players and defensive players both talk about how in-depth and complex the playbooks that we have here is. And I already know my boy Darius is about to get triggered and say, oh my God, like Darius, he's from Texas, so he just likes really simple things. He doesn't like players playing out of position. He doesn't like, trick plays because he thinks they're gimmicky, even though, we've seen them to be able to be used in the NFL as long as you don't over-rely on them. And nonetheless, the fact that Ben Johnson already with the complex playbook is looking at his team and saying, all right, we want to see who's really adapting to this. And I don't think it's like a trick to like go off on anybody or anything like that, even though we know Ben Johnson's very passionate. He's still stopping practice when things aren't aligned. He stopped practice yesterday to talk to Caleb Williams on a misread. So, those things are there and he's still doing that coaching thing. But this just goes to show how Ben Johnson is really living up to basically all the hype so far that he can. I mean, you can only live up to it so much in a minicamp. It still matters when you're in between those lines and on Sunday and the game's going on. But Ben Johnson is thinking about this he's playing 3D chess right now to see who, and it didn't even say we're going to go back, look at the tape. We're going to see who did good, who handled it well, because that tells you, all right, maybe this is the player that when they're working with their positional coaches, we need to go over this a little bit more. And that's the point. That's why you have practices together. That's why you have positional coaches. That's why you have all of that. And Ben Johnson said it when he came in here. It's not about a win later thing. They do want to win now. Why can't they win now? It was very similar to the Derrick Rose speech. So taking the psychological part and putting that into the game of football is big from a coach from a motivating standpoint, knowing how you need to motivate your guys and knowing where and how you need to work with your guys. So I don't see this as a problem at all. If anything, I see this as this was very smart and intentional by a head coach and a coaching staff that are looking at creative ways to motivate their guys and making sure that everybody is on the same page. And you have to do things like this. I really hope that we hear that they have another session like this in the next mini camp, right? So you just keep having times like this where you go unscripted, where you do something that's unexpected to try to see, all right, now where are we at as a team? And one of the important pieces about where we are as a team is going to definitely come down to where Caleb Williams is as the quarterback of this team. This one comes from Adam Schefter. When she talks about Caleb Williams, he says this. Well, you heard Ben Johnson, the new Bears coach, right there, talk about all the time he spent with Caleb this offseason, trying to marry their minds together to think alike. And every single thing the Bears have done this offseason seems designed to bring the best out of Caleb Williams. They hire Ben Johnson first and foremost and surround him with an assistant coaching staff to elevate Caleb Williams. Now, I think that this coaching staff is there to elevate the team overall and not just Caleb Williams, but make no mistake about it. Caleb Williams is still a huge part and one of the biggest question marks on, depending on how good Caleb Williams can be, that completely could change the direction of this team when it comes down to it. Schefter goes on to say this. Then they go out and trade for 3 different offensive linemen. They go fortify a leaky offensive front to protect Caleb. And then they use 2 top draft picks, a tight end for Michigan and a wide receiver for Missouri, to give Caleb even more weapons. So he's got coaches, he's got the line, he's got the weapons. They're doing everything they can to make sure he fulfills his potential. And he's not wrong. Schefter's not wrong on that. The Bears have done a lot of what's in their power to fix things to where, all right, now let's just see Caleb thrive in his potential, or where does he fall short at? What do we need to do at that point in time? And the Bears, going 5-12 last year in the first season of Caleb Williams, I'm getting sacked 68 times. Y'all know the stats. We've talked about it so much. Y'all should know it by now. Caleb has to also grow as a quarterback. And for my Bears fans that like to say that people are giving Caleb too much excuses when you talk about how bad the offense. Well, there are other quarterbacks that have bad offensive line. Yeah, okay, but also the bad play calling. But either way you want to do that. Either way you want to eliminate it, and that does not stop Caleb Williams from having the onus on where he needs to develop as a quarterback. That's still there. Who and what Caleb Williams turns into is still in large part on Caleb Williams and how he develops. He has to turn into the guy that he says that he wants to be. And you can only do that by putting in work. And, Ben Johnson and Caleb getting on the same page. Ben Johnson talking about the time that he spent with Caleb during the offseason to help get him into a place and get their minds on the same wavelength. That's important. You're throwing a lot at Caleb Williams with the playbook this year. And at least this year, there are coaches watching tape with Caleb to help go over things with him, right? Instead of like last year and how things were handled. So it just puts more and more on, all right, Caleb, what are you bringing now to this team? How have you developed? What have you changed about your game? How have you improved from year 1 to year 2 in your processing? And now that you have the weapons, you have a better offensive line, you have this going for yourself now, it all comes down now to we can look at Caleb and say, this is what Caleb is looking like he's going to be. And it's great that you didn't throw a lot of interceptions last year. It's great that you threw for over 3,500. All those things are great, right? The numbers look good. They're some of the best numbers by Bears rookie quarterback that we've seen ever. But the thing is that we need more than that. We need wins. And so all the stats in the world are great, but you have to be a quarterback that can lead your team to wins. What's one thing that I always say on this show? Quarterbacks are going to get an unjust amount of the blame and acclaim when it comes to being a starting quarterback. And that's just part of the job. That's part of the job in being a quarterback at the NFL. And so, yeah, everybody's looking at Caleb and seeing what he's going to do. That's why when you heard things like he didn't have the best practice one day, like people react to that. But then you hear stuff like yesterday's practice where he had a bounce back day. Had led the team on 11-on-11 drills, led the team in a 2-minute drill, had a 94-yard drive that ended in a touchdown. Kyle Monangai stuck out on that as well. When you hear these things in the offense getting back into the rhythm, that's what you want. That's all what this is about, is getting the offense in rhythm. You want to get over as much of that curve as you can in minicamp, in training camp, in the preseason games. You want to get over as much of that hump as you can. That way, once the real games start, you're in a much better place as far as getting over that, because there's still going to be a curve in the regular season. I don't care what you do or how good you look or any of that during preseason or during training camp or any of that. Once you have another team that's in front of you, they don't give a damn where you were drafted. They don't give a damn about your problems with your offensive line. They give a damn about coming out there and trying to kill you. That's what they give a damn about. So that's what this team and they have to have this identity. And it seems like they're really forging this identity through this mini camp period and through what they've done so far. Again, forging, not forge, because I think you can only have a true culture and identity when you start winning football games. Other than that, it's just a lot of potential. And potential don't really win nothing. It's the realization of that potential. And Ben Johnson's somebody who understands that more than anything. And so, there's a lot of potential on this team. Hearing Kyle Monangai is turning heads. That's great to hear. He's going to have an upward battle of getting consistent snaps on this team, but he's doing everything in his power to do so. That's what you want to see from a team that should have a chip on the shoulder. This team, you have proven nothing. You still, in one of the deepest divisions in football, you still looked as the little brother in that division because don't nobody take you seriously yet. Nobody takes the Chicago Bears seriously as it stands right now. But they can start changing some of that narrative with how they perform, and that Caleb Williams, the performance of the offense, that's going to be a big part of all of this. Another player that's going to be a big part of all of this as well is Ozzy Trapillo. Hearing yesterday in his time with the starters, and Clay Harbor basically gushing over this player and Ozzy Trapillo and what he was able to bring there. Clay Harbor saying this: he just has this aura out there that he's just not confused like a rookie. He's looking like a veteran already. Hearing that, and those are going to be words that motivate a lot of people when it comes to Chicago Bears fans, because they look at the left tackle position and there's a lot of question marks. And Ozzy Trapillo's job to come in here in this rookie year is to make the Bears coaches think, all right, is starting this guy the best case scenario for us as a team? Because if it is, then great, right? If it is, then great. You got you one. You drafted him in the second round. You didn't draft him in the second round for him to just be on the back end of the bench. You drafted him to contribute. And, the thing that with him turning heads and playing as good as he is, to me, and I said this yesterday on the episode with Bobby, it just means to me that he is at bare minimum going to be a swing tackle for us that can perform pretty damn well. And I tell you what, that's what I want to hear from this team, is where things stand right now. You brought in Ozzy Trapillo here to bring in competition for Braxton. Ryan Poles had talked about it since the beginning of the offseason. There was going to be competition brought in for Braxton Jones. Kieran Amagaze, Ozzy Trapillo are bringing the competition. Now it's going to be up to Braxton once he gets back on the football field to show and earn that he can still be a starter for the Chicago Bears team. But it's going to be an uphill battle because Ozzy Trapillo is looking good, man. And it's similar to the story that Braxton Jones had as a rookie. And shout out to Bobby for calling that out. Right, when we went into that period and we started hearing about this kid in Braxton Jones who could be the starter, who was getting starter snaps and all of that, like now it's Ozzy's time. And if he does come out of that, it's great. And again, that's not to knock Braxton. I know Braxton has his fans. I think some of them are a little bit more, have exaggerated some. I think some of the people who knock him have exaggerated that some as well. But while Braxton Jones has been a perfectly fine tackle to a degree, he's not a franchise left tackle. I don't care what nobody says. The people that try to come in here and like, oh, he's a top 15 tackle in this league. All right, whatever. But he's not. Braxton has not shown the things that you can look at and you're like, hey, we never have to worry about the left tackle position again. He's not shown enough for that, and that's part on his performance. That's part on the state of the team. I do think Braxton will look better with better veterans out there as well, as you can expect from everyone. But the question that the Bears have to ask themselves is not just about now; it's about the future. Is Ozzy Trapillo's ceiling, how much higher is that than Braxton Jones? So I think that's what it comes down to. Braxton, he's been fine, and I think he's still going to play. Like, nobody's talking about Braxton Jones being completely out of the rotation at all. Like, nobody's saying that. But him starting, it's looking like it's going to be it's less and less likely that Braxton Jones is going to be a starter for this Bears team with the way that we've heard things so far. But we haven't gotten to hear Braxton because he's still healing from the ankle surgery that he had in the offseason. So we'll see how that comes on. But for somebody who already didn't have an anchor and a really good base, that ankle injury, that could be a big one for Braxton coming into this season. So we'll see how that's going to develop for him as well. Did y'all? Side note, right? Let's get off of the left tackle. Have y'all seen how big Rome Odunze got? I mean, as far as a muscle standpoint, have you seen that? Rome Odunze has put in some serious freaking work this offseason, and hopefully that's going to put him in a position where he's better equipped. You could tell he's clearly been hitting the weight room when it comes down to it, man. This dude, he's listed as 6'3", 215 pounds during his rookie year, and I can't wait till we get the weights for this year because I would not be surprised if he's upwards of 225. I really wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, man. And while he finished his rookie campaign pretty solidly, 54 receptions, 734 yards, 3 touchdowns. When you look at the way that he can grow, we talk a lot about the leap that Caleb Williams can make in year 2. A Rome Odunze that comes in here and makes a huge leap as well with the now experience that he has, the muscle that he's added, all those type of things that he's had there, the better overall offensive play calling. I think that he's gonna that Ben Johnson's gonna love using Rome Odunze. That's part of what they have there in that wide receiver core. All that's gonna be nasty. And Rome Odunze, listen, I know we haven't heard a whole lot about him yet this offseason, right? We hasn't had like we haven't heard like, oh, Rome Odunze had a standout practice. But I tell you what, regardless of any of that, if you look at how big this dude has gotten, right, as far as just the muscle standpoint, you can tell that he really spent the offseason refining his body to get ready for the rigors of what it's going to take to be a wide receiver in the NFL. And that I'm super excited for, because Rome looks like he is ready, y'all. And yeah, you need to see steps up from everyone. And we already are expecting the Ben Johnson bump from everybody, right? As far as just this offense and how they're utilized and all those type of things. We're expecting a bump in production from a lot of these players because of the type of offense that we're going to run. But still, overall, like Rome Odunze, he's set to be a huge role with this team, especially now that Keenan Allen's gone. You have a better slot receiver in Luther Burden and what he's slated to bring to this team as well. Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, like the receiving, the players that are going to be catching passes from Caleb Williams this year, all could see a considerable bump up for a lot of different reasons. But Rome Odunze, if he steps up and you start having make that conversation on, is Rome actually the wide receiver one? That's what you really ideally want out of this in year two from Rome Odunze. But Jaquan Brisker was also asked about him and the concussions. He was asked a question on, did he ever think about retirement with the concussions, missed 11 of the 11 straight games for the Chicago Bears. He said that was never a discussion point for him, and it shouldn't be. With as young as he is, it shouldn't be. He did say this: it feels great being back in action, but it was hard being away from football last year. He said that he went to the doctor in Pittsburgh to help him get through with different exercises during that time away. We've talked a lot about Brisker and the secondary overall. This is a secondary that, I talked about it last year. It had the chance of being one of the best secondaries in football. Now, that didn't happen. Jaquan went down. Lack of performance overall from the team on the defensive side of the ball. It didn't quite get where I was hoping that it was going to get. But with Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson, Kevin Byard, Jaquan Brisker, Terrell Smith being here, all these guys that we have here that really can be standouts in this secondary, as well as now having a defensive coordinator that really likes to use his secondary in various ways. That's where you're going to see the Chicago Bears really potentially have something special. And now they got to prove it. Everything has to be proven on the football field. No more am I getting up, down, excited, or anything about something until we see it in fruition. They got a chance here. They got a really big chance here to be something special, especially with the way that Dennis Allen is going to use these guys. Health has to be one of the first and foremost things there, of course, right? And that's for every football team. You hope for health for everyone up and down. But Jaquan Brisker, I love that he's starting to get more and more talk. I love that people are starting to more and more realize, like, getting Jaquan Brisker back healthy, and if he's able to stay on the football field, it does change quite a bit for your football team. And that's not to put too much on Jaquan to come in and be the thing that really kind of dictates everything with this defense, because that's not the case. But in what Jaquan does bring to this team, and not only mindset, mentality, and leadership, as well as skill, that's what this Bears defense is going to need. And I could see Dennis Allen really falling in love with Jaquan Brisker. We know all the questions that are there for Jaquan as far as for the future of his career and things like that, and depending on how this season goes. But outside of that, and just looking at it just as what Jaquan can bring to this team, what Jaquan can do for this team, a lot of that is important. And so we'll see what happens here. Overall, I'll say this. I'm excited to see not just individual, not just the team success that we can have, right? But a lot of these players that, because Bobby called it out probably about a month ago at this point. Bobby said, you got to be prepared for a lot of these players that we like to potentially not be in a Bears uniform as things go forward and this team progresses. And Jaquan Brisker could definitely be one of those guys, mainly because of the injuries and mainly because of, some of the things that happen. Like, you can't bet on a player that you can't keep on the field, or at least not into a heavy investment. So I hope for one that Jaquan is able to have a bounce back year for himself, selfishly because I love him as a player, but also because of what it means for the Bears and what it means for him. Having concussions is tough. It's a really tough thing to have a concussion, and for that to be the reason why your body failing you and why you can't get on the football field to help your guys out. And with the competitor that we know Jaquan is, I'm sure watching this team struggle over the ending of the season that they had was tough for him. because he probably saw it and was like, I could be out there helping my guys right now, and I'm not able to do it. And that's an unfortunate side effect. Jaquan and Roschon, for that matter, these are two guys that I think health is going to be a big reason. I could see both the offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators loving both these guys for what they can bring to the field, but they got to prove it. And for Roschon, even more than Jaquan, Roschon got to stop being a in concept of what he can be, and he got to start showing that on the football field if you want to stay here with the Chicago Bears, and we'll see if that ends up being the case. But that's my time for today, guys. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.